Welcome, everybody, to the NFL Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. The NFL Show is brought to you by Replenishing Care and Technologies. Make sure you check them out at rcandt.com. I am your host for the NFL Show, Mike Goodpaster, and right now I'd like to welcome in my co-host, Sam Teets. How you doing, Sam?
I'm doing great, Mike. How about you?
I know life's been kind of a whirlwind for you ever since you started the Sam and Sam show. I'm glad you could take time out to do our show.
Yeah, I'm just so generous stealing time on my busy schedule here in my dorm room to go and do the show today.
All right, last night, the New England Patriots threw a scare into the Kansas City Chiefs, eventually succumbing to the Chiefs 26-10. The Patriots defense confounded Patrick Mahomes for a good portion of the night. Devin McCourty dropped an early interception, and Mahomes was stunningly ruled into grasp on a sack by Chase Winovich. There was a lot of things here that really make you wonder how anybody could think Bill Belichick's not the best defensive coach, at least in the history of the game. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, the only time he gets shut out in first halves, it's happened 3 times, and they were all against Bill Belichick coach teams.
Yeah, they have a way of figuring him out, and also the running attack. They shut down Clyde Edwards-Helaire for a large part of that game. Belichick at this point, he is the greatest coach of all time. He's shown it time and time again. People shouldn't doubt the Patriots this year. I think they definitely have a wild card level team. I think we learned the most about the Kansas City Chiefs last night because their holes originally even entering the season, even last week, I thought that the Chiefs were good enough. They would just roll through certain games because they were so talented. But we're seeing some cracks in the armor here. I think the Chiefs are a lot more vulnerable than I initially anticipated.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder what happens if Cam Newton plays last night. For some reason, they started Brian Hoyer. And I don't know what's more shocking, the fact that Brian Hoyer has been in the NFL for 12 seasons, because you wonder how it happens. I know they probably went with him because it was short notice and he started games before, but they had a chance to take the lead at the end of the half. Hoyer takes a sack, which is something a veteran shouldn't do, and they end up down 6-3 at the half. They bring him Stidham in the fourth quarter. And just from what I saw in the fourth quarter, I think Jarrett Stidham would have been the better option all night.
Yeah, well, he threw 2 interceptions, but the one clearly wasn't his fault. Julian Edelman, his hands like a rock now, apparently. He dropped 3 or 4 passes last night, including one he basically just handed to Tyrann Mathieu that turned into a pick 6 and basically ended the game. Stidham was much better than Brian Hoyer. I think he at least would have given you a chance. I'm surprised they didn't go with him. I guess, again, it was short notice. Hoyer has some experience in that system, but at the same point, really, Jarrett Stidham would have given them a better shot to win that game.
Yeah, and even with backup quarterbacks playing, the Chiefs' defense was still outstanding, which this team may be more dangerous than last year, if that makes any sense, just because of the defense. I don't even think Chris Jones played last night.
No, he didn't. Frank Clark had a very big role in that game, though. And he's really been the one I wanted to keep an eye on because Clark wasn't healthy for most of last year. And when he was with Seattle, that final year in Seattle, he had a really big role in that team. He was a borderline Pro Bowl player. I think he'll be a significant improvement based on what they had last year. They'll have him when Chris Jones is healthy. He's possibly the best pass rushing defensive tackle in football, maybe outside of Aaron Donald. So you're at a point where you've got 2 really good players up front, Tyrann Mathieu in the secondary. They've got some really good pieces in that defense.
All right, we move on to the Green Bay Packers and the Atlanta Falcons. The Packers beat the Falcons 30-16. No shock there. The Packers defense played well, though, against a Falcon defense that has some weapons. And when you look at it, I think that's what gives this team a chance this year, plus the fact that Aaron Rodgers is on fire. He's got Devontae Adams, Alan Lazard, Aaron Jones running the ball, the Green Bay Packers. And I say this because last year, even though they were, 13-3, whatever it was, I never really took them seriously. This team has a different feel to it to me, though.
No, last year the Packers kind of snuck their way into the NFC Championship game. It didn't feel like a legitimate run. This year, you're right, though. Aaron Rodgers is playing at about his MVP level from previous years. He's right there. He's going to set a single-season career record for completion percentage if he keeps it up. And defensively, we got Zadarius Smith. Maybe is one of the best 5 pass rushers in the game right now. Jair Alexander is turning into a Pro Bowl cornerback. They got 2 decent safeties. They have pieces here on defensively that if they mesh here, because I really don't think they meshed well last year, if they start working together again, this could be one of the top maybe 12 defenses in the NFL, which is all it needs to be if Green Bay's offense is running as well as it is right now.
Yeah, you look at the secondary, Darnell Savage, Kevin King, Adrian Amos, all did their part in keeping Atlanta's wide receivers out of the end zone. And, I mean, Amos is a guy that maybe had the biggest highlight of the night with the deflection on an underthrown ball to Ridley in the end zone on 4th down to basically seal it for Green Bay late.
Yeah, like I said, this is a very talented secondary. The issue for them last year is that they didn't come through in the clutch, and also they had trouble against the run. I'm hoping that Kenny Clark is going to do better this year. Maybe that will shore up some of the issues they had on the defensive front. Rashawn Gary's getting more playing time. You still got Za'Darius Smith and Preston Smith rushing the passer. This team should have been better defensively last year than it was. I think this year we're finally going to see some of the potential from this group come out and actually show on the field.
Yeah, all right. Bill O'Brien. Tell us what happened to Bill O'Brien yesterday. He had a very, I guess, bad day for Bill O'Brien. It's a day Dan Quinn may get very soon. But tell us a little bit about the Houston Texans coaching situation.
Yeah, so the Houston Texans have fired Bill O'Brien, the GM and head coach. He's no longer with the organization. They're promoting Romeo Crennel to interim head coach right now. But presumably they're going to be looking for a new general manager and possibly even a new head coach. I would assume a new head coach. I wouldn't put Crennel there at the position long term. But they're going to be looking to fill new positions of management within their organization. And Bill O'Brien, I think we both knew this was coming, especially after an 0-4 start. Some people were shocked that it happened so early in the season, I guess you could say, after signing Deshaun Watson to that major contract. They maybe expected him to get a little bit later. But I say why not right now? They're playing terribly. From the sounds of it, he's lost the confidence of a lot of players in the locker room. J.J. Watt even said after a most recent loss, what they're doing isn't working. I think this is probably a good timing. Sooner rather than later for me is always better with these kind of situations. But O'Brien, let's face it, he was a decent head coach, but as a general manager, that's really where he messed up.
Yeah, I actually think he was a good head coach. I mean, he got a lot of teams with no quarterback play before Deshaun Watson to the playoffs. So I think he'll get another job at some point. I think he deserves another job as long as that job doesn't come with a GM title attached to it.
Yeah, no, if you look at his first couple of years with the Texans before this season, he was 52-44. For a head coach, it's not a bad record, honestly, especially considering Zach Taylor has a head coaching job. And some of these RP coaches out there who are like, why are they even still around? They have jobs. But Bill O'Brien, I mean, Adam Gase still has a coaching job. But Bill O'Brien is, to me, is better than those guys. But at the same point, he made so many bad personnel decisions, and now they don't have their first and second round picks in 2021. So I'm looking at this team like, how do they get better? How do they improve? They have the highest salary roster of any team in the NFL right now, and you don't have for your first 2 picks in the upcoming draft. So how do you actually get better, and how do you build this team back up?
All right, let's go ahead and look at the Week 5 after 4 weeks of the NFL Power Ratings, brought to you by Sam Teets. Sam, number 1, Russell Wilson. Number 2, Aaron Rodgers. I don't think there's any doubt those two are the top 2 right now. And Russell Wilson played probably his worst game of the year so far, and he was 24 for 34, 360 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, a passer rating of 112.4. When that's your best game, you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I'll pull them up right now. I think you can see them now. But Russell Wilson is at number 1 because, I mean, he's been balling out this entire year. I think he is still the clear front runner for the MVP. I know we're only a quarter of the way through the year, but to me, that's not a stretch to say that at all based on how well he's played. And Seahawks offense, it's really a situation where this is usually a run-heavy team or usually a team that relies on defense. Finally, now they're letting Russell Wilson go out and throw the ball 35 times a game, and we're seeing what's happening. This is what they should have been doing last year as well. But really, they waited too long. Now we're finally seeing the fruits of Russell Wilson going out there and having more control of the offense.
Yeah, and Aaron Rodgers at number 2 could easily be number 1. I think this is the first time we've had somebody close to Russell Wilson. What Aaron Rodgers did last night, 27 for 33, 327 yards, 4 touchdowns, 147.5 passer rating. And as you put in the article, Rodgers will finish at this pace with almost 5,000 yards, 52 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions. I would say if he does that, he will probably overcome Russell Wilson to be the MVP.
Yeah, really. This is the first time we've seen him play at this level. So I think like 2016, maybe 2015. He hasn't hit this level in a while now. And he's not doing it with a lot of weapons. Devontae Adams has been hurt for a couple of weeks. Allen Lazard has been his best receiving option. He's still performing at a high level. Aaron Rodgers, to me, looks like he's enjoying football again, where he was kind of annoyed with the entirety of last year. He's just mentally better than what he was, and now he's performing at an MVP level again. It's great to see. I think the Packers are legitimate contenders in the NFC now.
All right, number 3, you've got Patrick Mahomes. Number 4, Josh Allen. And as crazy as this sounds, I think those could be flipped even. But I think it's close right now. Josh Allen has played very well. And I also think that when you used to make fun of me because I'd say I thought that they had a lot of similarities, right now you've got them ranked 3 and 4.
Yeah, I know. They could have been flip-flopped. I even told you last night I thought I was going to put Josh Allen at 3. I ended up looking at the numbers again. I still have Patrick Mahomes at 3 because he's made fewer mistakes, I think, to this point. But really, I could see a situation where the MVP candidates are Russell Wilson, Josh Allen, and Aaron Rodgers. I think it could come down to those 3. Because these are guys who right now are playing at just insane levels. I know Patrick Mahomes still has good numbers, but he's also not playing at peak Patrick Mahomes levels. He had, by his standards, an off game the other night. Meanwhile, Josh Allen's setting completely new career highs for himself. He's an elite quarterback right now. I never thought I would say that about Josh Allen.
Number 5, we've got Tom Brady. Number 6, Ryan Tannehill. Tannehill stays at, or actually, I think you dropped him down a spot. You brought Brady up to 5. And, of course, everybody, as soon as they think that Brady is finished, he throws 5 touchdowns in a game. And outside of an early pick 6, he was very good. And he went up against Justin Herbert, who played the game of his life so far. And, of course, as Brady is often apt to do, he ends up winning in the end.
Yeah, I would put Brady, honestly, he's a borderline. If we're talking about like the elite quarterbacks in the NFL right now, it's definitely those top 4. But if Brady keeps playing at the level he's been at, I would say Brady deserves to get back into that group just because he's Tom Brady, and B, really, he's had 2 probably solid weeks at this point. He's made some mistakes early in the year, but again, he was in a new offense, new team, and he hasn't had Chris Godwin or Mike Evans consistently throughout this whole process. He's really starting to improve here, and if this is what we see from Tom Brady the rest of the year, he's definitely up there in that elite conversation.
All right, number 7, you got Lamar Jackson. I think that's about right for him. I think that is where his skill set is. I think he's somewhere between 7 and 10. I know a lot of people think I'm nuts for that, but did not play great against Washington, played good enough to get the win. You got Drew Brees at number 8, and Drew Brees, though, the last 2 or 3 weeks has played really well. I would actually say that I think Drew Brees is better than Lamar Jackson right now.
It's in the past 2 weeks maybe, but I think he started the year really slow. And to a sense, I'm still cautious about Drew Brees because he's had some issues where he's kind of fallen off to a level. I agree you could probably swap these 2, but in the same sense, I don't have a lot of faith in Drew Brees. My faith in Drew Brees has been harmed over the past year and a half or so, and so I'm kind of staying a little cautious with him. I think he's going to have good weeks where he looks like a top 5 quarterback. At the same point, he's also going to have weeks where he looks like maybe a top 16 quarterback. So we're kind of splitting the middle ground right now with Drew Brees.
Yeah, but isn't that a little bit the way Lamar Jackson is? I mean, do you have a lot of confidence in Lamar Jackson against a good defense in a big spot?
Yeah, you take that into account. Lamar hasn't been terrific against great defenses either, and he struggled a little bit against Washington this week. Really, I have these 2. I think you could flip-flop them to me, but there's a little bit of a drop-off after number 8. For right now, I think these guys have to be in the top 8. I don't see them falling any lower.
All right, I don't think there's a drop-off after 8. I think Deshaun Watson's still one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You got him at 9. Dak Prescott at 10. Dak Prescott has played well, and when you look at it, Dak Prescott losing games is not Dak Prescott's fault. The fact that they're even in games will tell you that Dak Prescott's a pretty damn good quarterback.
Now, you and I love making fun of the Dallas Cowboys, but we have to admit Dak's a solid NFL quarterback, and really he's performing and doing almost everything he can. There's 1 or 2 mistakes he makes every game that I kind of question a little bit, so he's still making some of those mistakes that I would have thought he would have advanced beyond at this point. But he's dropping back so many times, and Mike McCarthy's offense is based so much on just throwing the ball, trying to throw for 500 yards every game. When you make that many throws, make that many dropbacks, you're going to have mistakes happen. It's only natural. And frankly, that offense is not putting the Dallas Cowboys in a good spot for winning these games.
All right, number 11, you got Derek Carr. Number 12, Jared Goff. Number 13, Joe Burrow. I'm actually one of the few Derek Carr fans outside of his family, but I don't think he should be ahead of Goff or Burrow.
Really?
I mean, when I watch these, I could see maybe Goff, but Joe Burrow is better than him. And when you look at Joe Burrow, first NFL quarterback in history, 3 straight 300 consecutive games as a rookie. And the fact that he is doing that in a Zach Taylor-led offense says even more about Joe Burrow than anything else, because I don't think Zach Taylor has a clue what he's doing. But Joe Burrow is still throwing for 300 yards every game. He makes very few mistakes.
Yeah, you say it, but Derek Carr hasn't thrown an interception yet. It's his offensive line that's gotten in trouble a couple times. He's lost some fumbles. But Carr's been a very clean quarterback as well. He hasn't made a ton of mistakes. And he's playing arguably and also a very limited offense.
Wait a second. Because in the article you said he has lost 4 fumbles.
Yeah, I said the offensive line's been killing him a little bit too.
Okay, well, he can still hold on to the ball. And, I mean, he led the league in fumbles in 2018. The Raiders aren't a bad team, but I think we still see that this team still needs some pieces to be a serious contender. I think they might be able to contend for that last extra playoff spot. When we look at the Rams and Jared Goff, the Rams are 3-1. I don't think he has played great, but I think he has played above average. And I think that he looks a lot closer to what he was 2 years ago than what he looked like last year.
I think part of that is they've had a little bit of a run game, whereas they haven't had that, or they didn't have it last year. So there's a little bit more confidence in his ability to go out there and make plays. I think we've seen him play, just make better, quicker decisions. He's not holding the ball as much. And also, he's just not making the really dumb decisions. He had a lot of very poor passes last year. We're just wondering, like, what's going through his mind when he's doing that. Is his mental clock accelerated too much to the point where he's forcing it? I thought this was happening last year. And this year, offensive line's playing a little bit better, running games back a little bit. I think he's just feeling more confident in the offense.
All right, then we get to the guys that, I mean, there's a big separation there if you get past Burrow, I think. You got Matthew Stafford, who puts up decent numbers but seems to always shoot himself in the foot with a stupid mistake. You got Kyla Murray, who is a guy that has to do this by himself. The O-line's not very good in Arizona. I think people overrate Murray a little bit. And then Cam Newton, the COVID got him.
Yeah, pretty much. Cam Newton, honestly, if he had played this week, he might have had a chance to beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And if he had done that, we'd be talking about him probably as a top 12, top 13 guy on this list. But because he was held out, he's kind of falling a little bit naturally. So he's down number 16. Kyla Murray, again, we see the potential, but too many mistakes. They lose another game. To me, he's a lot of hype right now and a lot of just – he looks very good on the field, but he's not producing the wins. He's not necessarily getting his team over the hump. So I have a lot of questions about him moving forward. I jumped the gun a little bit earlier this year when I thought he was going to do really well. And as for Stafford, I mean, he was elite through the first 8 games of last season. He has not been that at all this year.
All right, Big Ben, you got at 17. I think Big Ben should be ahead of Newton, Murray, Stafford. I think Big Ben should be in the top 15 of this list. I mean, 7 touchdowns, 1 interception. His team's 3-0. And I hate to say this, but we could see a lot more from Big Ben as he gets into a little bit of a rhythm here. And with that defense, makes him even more dangerous if he could just limit the turnovers.
Yeah, I'm kind of remaining a little bit pessimistic. I'm always a little bit pessimistic when it comes to Big Ben and his health and the turnovers because what I've seen in the past. Granted, I would love to have hit the ball in his hands with maybe 2 minutes left on the clock. I trust him in crunch time. But at the same point, he's looked a little bit older to me this year. Some of the throws he's making, there's not as much velocity in the ball. The ball's wobbling a little more in the air. So I'm a little bit more worried when I watch him play. I know his numbers look
good. How about
good.
this, Sam, that could make a quarterback better sometimes. Randall Cunningham didn't have the velocity in 1998 or 99 that he had in 1989. But I think the thing that can lead to is a guy like Big Ben, who's known for kind of forcing things. Maybe if he realizes that, he reins his game in a little bit, and maybe you don't get all the passing yards and all the touchdowns, but you may not get all the turnovers either. And if you limit the turnovers with a team that can play defense like that, Big Ben, I think, can be not necessarily a better quarterback, but he can be a more effective quarterback for what the Pittsburgh Steelers want to do.
You know, I really didn't think about it that way. That's actually a very positive way of looking at it, Mike. I'll take that into account next time. Makes me really happy to think about that.
Make sure you do. Number 18, Justin Herbert. I think he deserves to be higher. I mean, he played his ass off. He's played his ass off the last 2 or 3 weeks. And, I mean, he makes a mistake here or there, but he's a rookie. He's a rookie that I did not think would be this good at any point during his career, and he's doing it 3 games in. So I think Justin Herbert deserves a little bit more credit than what you're giving him here.
Yeah, but I did the same thing with Joe Burrow. I kind of take time with the rookies to move him up the list. Where did I have Joe Burrow at last year? Last week. I had him at 17. Yeah, and I have Herbert at 18. So if he plays well again this week, I'll have him up closer to 13, 14-ish. But for now, I'm always a little pessimistic because rookies sometimes get hot and they drop off.
Yeah, but remember this. If you're doing a power ranking, it's for right now who ranks where. And I don't think there's any way that over half of this league has played better than Justin Herbert in the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying there. I also have a little bit of an issue where I didn't see Cam Newton play this week. I didn't see a bunch of guys who were up here play this week because of COVID-19. And if I had seen them play, there's a chance I would have put Herbert over them. But I feel like I couldn't put.
Yeah, but if you don't even count this game and just go to 2 games before, he's played better than Cam Newton.
Really, you think so?
Yeah, I mean, Cam Newton's a game manager that runs the ball right now. Now, that doesn't mean that's not going to change as he gets more comfortable, because I think the same thing I said about Big Ben may go with Cam, because I don't think you see the arm strength with Cam now. But if you've got a quarterback that is intelligent, that wants to win games, he will realize that and he will adapt his game. I mean, if you look at other sports, it's like Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali in the 1960s was dancing around, smacking people. By the time you get to 1974, he upset George Foreman because he laid on the ropes, let him wear himself out, and then beat his ass. So the thing is this, great players will adapt their game so they can still play at a high level, where other guys who just have huge egos that have a lot of talent may not adapt that. I mean, Brett Favre never adapted that. If Brett Favre would have adapted that, he may win a Super Bowl in Minnesota.
Yeah, because he was always forced and stuff. Remember, was it the Saints in the playoffs that game? He turned the ball over a couple of times.
Yeah, and the one was at the end of the game, which gave the Saints the game. And, you go back to a couple of years before that. It seems to me Brett Favre failed in the playoffs more often than not. But those last 6 or 7 years of his career were just constantly atrocious failures. I mean, you had the game against the Giants in Green Bay at Lambeau where it's freezing, and he throws a critical interception. You have the game against the Eagles. He throws the pick 6 in overtime. If he would have just realized he didn't have the arm strength to play that way anymore, and nobody really has the arm strength to play that way. It's all in their head. I mean, once you hear a guy's a gunslinger, the first thing I think is, well, you're not going to win too many championships with that, because that's not what wins championships. Which wins championships is the ability to take calculated risk. And the problem with a gunslinger wants to risk everything. Where Joe Montana might try to throw it into double coverage, but it's a calculated risk. He's throwing it to John Taylor or Jerry Rice, and, that makes the calculated risk a hell of a lot easier. But you didn't constantly see Joe Montana try to make those throws. You've seen Tom Brady throw it in a small window in a big situation, but he's not trying to make that throw in the first quarter because he knows that can kill you then. At the end of the game, Brett Favre just thought his arm strength and natural ability was enough, and he tried to force himself on everything. And that brings us to 19, 20, and 21. Matt Ryan, he's played well. He's got no chance in Atlanta. Kirk Cousins is playing better. I mean, it was against Houston. And 21, Baker Mayfield. I think he deserves to be higher, Sam. I mean, I know that he's not doing much here, but the thing I see is he's got a team that can run the ball. The way the Browns run the ball, put it like this. If I tell you every game, Baker Mayfield is going to be 19 for 30 for 165 yards and 2 touchdowns with no turnovers, the Cleveland Browns are going to be a playoff team and a serious contender.
Yeah, they're 3-1 right now. I mean, that's a great start for them. It's not going to take much for them to get to 8 or 9 wins. And with 7 teams from each conference going to the playoffs, you might only need 8 wins to get into the postseason. And Cleveland, I think, will hit that number fairly easily. So the reason why I have Baker –
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, the reason I have Baker Mayfield this low is that – is he the reason they're winning games? I think he's not turning the ball over, which is nice.
Yeah, but this is the thing. He can be the reason he loses games. And when you look at, certain quarterbacks that you have up here, on the Kyla Murray threw 3 picks. He's the reason his team lost the game. He played poor. I mean, or no, he didn't. Well, the week before he threw the 3 picks, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And this game, he only threw for 133 yards. He couldn't throw the ball down the field. Is that more effective? Or is it Baker Mayfield that picks his shots and completes the passes and doesn't turn the ball over? To me, Baker Mayfield is better right now than Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, to me, is a turnover waiting to happen. He's a young kid with a bad offensive line who's trying to force things. That's what Baker Mayfield was last year. Now, this year, Baker Mayfield, the first couple games, they threw the ball a lot. It didn't work out. So the hope is now Baker Mayfield can check the ego. Kevin Stefanski, who wants to throw the ball, can check his ego, and they just run the ball, and they pick their spots to throw it. They don't turn the ball over, and they finish the season with 9 or 10 wins, and they're in the playoffs.
I feel as though I'm kind of rewarding him for not making bad decisions. I mean, or for not killing his team, which is...
This is the thing, though. You do reward quarterbacks for not making bad decisions, because when you look at the bottom of this list, Darnold, Wentz, Rivers, Minshew, Fitzpatrick, Foles, Daniel Jones, Dwayne your last 12 to 15 quarterbacks on here after him, outside of Teddy Bridgewater, are guys that are ranked that low because they're making bad decisions. So when you say you feel like you're ranking him for not making bad decisions, to me, the best reason to rank a quarterback is that he doesn't make bad decisions. When you look at the top of the list, Patrick Mahomes, Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, why are they on that list there? They're on that list there because consistently every week, they do not make decisions that hurt their team. They make positive decisions. Now, the problem with Baker Mayfield, he doesn't have the skill set of those three guys, but it doesn't mean he can't be successful. Because if you limit turnovers, if you don't turn the ball over, you're going to win more games than you lose. And like I said, the top half of this list is filled with guys that have thrown a lot of touchdowns, not many interceptions. The bottom of the list, bottom half of this list is always filled with guys that make those critical mistakes. That's why I think Baker Mayfield at 21 is a bad pick, because you've got Kirk Cousins. I mean, come on. Kirk Cousins has not played better than Baker Mayfield this year. You know, I can tell you, I mean, he just hasn't. And Kyler Murray has not played better than Baker Mayfield. Matthew Stafford sure to hell hasn't played better than Baker Mayfield. I think Baker Mayfield should be in the top half of these lists because he is not making those mistakes. Now, the difference is Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers don't make those mistakes, but they can put the team on their back and take them to the finish line. That's why they're in the top 5. But you can be a guy who is around 8 to 12 in this league just because you don't hurt your team. I mean, right now, Jared Goff is not played out of his mind. But the thing is, Jared Goff consistently, for the most part, has not made stupid decisions, has not turned the ball over that much, and his team is 3-1. If you get what I'm saying. So to me, when you say you feel like you're rewarding him for not making bad decisions, if I'm coaching a quarterback, that's who I want starting. I don't want to turn the ball over, because you turn the ball over, you lose the game.
Yeah, that's fair. I understand what you're saying right now. I still think a little bit, as I expected more from Baker Mayfield coming into the league, and you know, he's more of a game manager right now for Cleveland than an actual playmaker to some extent. All right, Greg Gorecki, our local Cleveland Browns fan, says the Browns have Jarvis Landry to throw the ball anyways. And I know Greg doesn't mean that, because it's like my son said, maybe he should be the quarterback. I'm like, yeah. Well, let's see Jarvis Landry take a 3-step drop with a bunch of angry men chasing him and have him read a defense and throw the ball. It's really easy to pitch it out to somebody and just have him fling it down the field. Not the same thing, but I know Greg doesn't mean that, but there are a lot of Cleveland Brown fans that I think really mean that. All right, here's a guy that I think you've got ranked too low too. 22, Teddy Bridgewater. 26 for 37, 276, 2 touchdowns and a pick. And they've already won more games than I thought they would this year. And they just won a game against an Arizona team you thought was a playoff contender or a playoff team. And they did it without Christian McCaffrey. Yeah, that's what's been incredible so far. So they haven't had Christian McCaffrey for most of these games. And they're tied for second in their division right now. I mean, this is a team that I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I don't think they're going to hold up their run right now. But, I mean, that offense is getting stuff done without the best player on their team, one of the best players in the entire NFL. So I'm surprised to the extent of how well they're performing. Yeah, I can understand Teddy Bridgewater having to be higher. I can understand that one for sure. There's really not a lot of defense there for that.
Who played better this week, Teddy Bridgewater or Kyler Murray?
Oh, Teddy Bridgewater probably, yeah.
But since you believe Kyler Murray's someday going to be really good and you think Teddy Bridgewater's just a guy, even though Teddy's outplaying Kyler Murray over the last 2 weeks, you rank him 8 spots below.
Yeah, you know, when you put it that way, it doesn't sound so smart.
All right. Number 23, Sam Darnold. We would talk about him, but he has no chance. 24, Carson Wentz. He did make the plays to win the game. I still think Carson Wentz is good. I know he's made a lot of mistakes, and I know I hate turnovers and mistakes, but I think with what he's dealing with, it's really hard not to make them. But at 1-2-1, as crazy as it sounds, since Doug Peterson is the head coach and Carson Wentz is the quarterback, I still think the Eagles are going to win this division, Sam.
Well, they have the division lead right now. Like you said, at 1-2-1. So it's certainly not out of the question. They have that lead. They can hold on to it. And they're just a better pairing. I mean, that that duo is significantly better than Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott. Not because Dak Prescott's going to make mistakes, but because Mike McCarthy, the way he's coaching, the way he's playing games, just isn't going to work out. I think the Eagles have this division. They should win this division. They have a lead at this point, and they have the lead in terms of what they have in leadership. Their leadership is much better. Their decision makers are much better. I think Philadelphia should win this division.
Number 25, Phillip Rivers. I think he's a mess, and I'll say it right now. I think the Indianapolis Colts would be better off with Jacoby Brissett.
Yeah, he's a low-grade game manager at best. I mean, I expected something from him this year, but this is significantly less than anything I think I anticipated at the very least. I mean, he's not making any plays.
I also think people are really, really overestimating the Colts defense. The teams they have beaten, I mean, they've got 2 or 3 wins against teams that aren't very good. And remember, the Jacksonville Jaguars smacked them in the mouth. And the Jacksonville Jaguars, ever since then, have looked like what we thought the Jacksonville Jaguars would be. So I think don't jump on that Colts train as a chance to make it to an AFC championship game too soon. I love the offensive line, but you're down to just Jonathan Taylor. You lost Marlon Mack. Phillip Rivers isn't really doing anything. So I still think there's huge cause for concern in Indianapolis.
Wait, your numbers are stacked defensive guys like Xavier Rhodes making interceptions because you're playing the Vikings and the Jets. I mean, you're playing teams that turn the ball over a lot. This is what's supposed to happen. But really, if you look at the skill of those individual players, outside of Justin Houston, Darius Leonard, and DeForest Buckner, you really don't have any high-grade defensive players.
All right, number 26, Gardner Minshew. Number 27, Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think you've got him, at least Minshew, way too low. If you look at Minshew's stats and what he's dealing with this year, I think Minshew should be in the top 20. I think he's played well. I thought he played pretty well against Cincinnati. He was 27 for 40, 351 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. This team has a lot of shortcomings, and Gardner Minshew has not been anywhere near one of those shortcomings this year.
So would you drop out guys like Kirk Cousins, Stafford, and I guess Kyla Murray, you would drop out of the top 20 and then move Minshew up in there?
I think Minshew's played better than all 3 of them this year.
That's fair. He's playing. He's not working with very much. I mean, he had one very bad game against Miami, but he didn't even have DJ Chark for that one. So he's really working with, outside of Chark, a bunch of scraps offensively.
Yeah, because your 14 and 15 really bother me. I mean, Stafford and Murray. I mean, Stafford seems to make a mistake to keep his team from winning every game they play this year. In Murray, I mean, he played well the first couple games, but since then he hasn't done a whole hell of a lot. And I just think guys like Big Ben, it really surprises me you don't respect Big Ben. And then Justin Herbert, the way he's played, even Matt Ryan and the situation he's in. And once again, Baker Mayfield still bothers me the most. Baker Mayfield should be in the top half of these rankings.
I'm surprised that's the one that bothers you the most out of this whole group.
It does, because he's done what a quarterback's supposed to do. You know, he's won, number 1. And number 2, he hasn't been the reason they've lost. I mean, the reason they lost the first game is Baltimore's just a better team than what they are. You know, if you want to line up against Baltimore and just run the ball, you're probably going to lose. If you want to throw the ball or just throw the ball, you're probably going to lose. And defensively, I think Cleveland has issues, but they can run the ball. If he just doesn't turn it over, lets the runners run, they've got a chance. 27, Ryan Fitzpatrick. I think that's too low. I mean, I don't think he's played that bad. I really don't, Sam.
He did have the 2 interceptions against the Seahawks. His secondary has been entirely beat up. They haven't had a
We're
good
talking
defense.
about a ranking of 27, by the way.
That's true. But I mean, look the guys ahead of him. Like, not many people threw 2 interceptions this week. There's not many people who turn the ball over that much.
How about this, though? Sam Darnold, Carson Wentz, Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers is the one that bothers me the most there. Phillip Rivers does. 28, you got Nick Foles. Nick Foles is what Nick Foles is. And he's a guy that can come in. And maybe he is the present-day Don Strock, you know, the old Miami Dolphin who would come in for David Woodley or Bob Greasy or Dan Marino or something and do something magical. And maybe he can do it for a couple weeks, but he's not consistently able to do it unless he's got a Super Bowl kind of team around him. He doesn't have that in Chicago. And I think we're going to see the Bears drop quickly from rankings.
Yeah, they started 3-0. I don't see that. I don't see them finish. They could finish maybe with 6 wins this year. I don't see them getting into the playoffs. All
right, next up, you got Daniel Jones and Dwayne Haskins at 29 and 30. I think Haskins may have played better than Jones this week. And I think that I have actually seen more improvement, not by much, from Dwayne Haskins than I have Daniel Jones.
Yeah, you say Daniel Jones is maybe the more talented of the two, but he's certainly made the most mistakes this year.
I don't know.
I can see Phillip.
Talented of the two. I mean, Haskins got a bigger arm. I mean, if you're talking about physical ability, I think Haskins is better. Daniel Jones, I mean, I think both guys are going to be failures because I think between their ears is the issue.
But yeah, they certainly started off their careers cold. And I can see these guys being out of their starting jobs in their third or fourth years easily.
All right. You go down to 35, but none of those guys really matter to me. So anything else you want to discuss, Sam?
I think we covered everything. The one good news is that no Tennessee Titans tested positive for COVID the last 2 days. It sounds like they're going to be able to play in week 5. We're not going to have any more schedule changes. So we're getting back to normal, it sounds like.
We'll see. There'll be more tomorrow.
Don't say that. Don't be so negative, Mike.
I'm not negative. Has anybody died that tested positive yet in the NFL?
No.
All right. I want to remind everybody that you hear me and Sam every day, Monday through Friday at, I thought you popped up as a second person there, Sam, at 1 o'clock every day. Tomorrow we'll do my power rankings, which hopefully I'll get written tonight if I can get enough time, which I'm not sure yet. So you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, and podcast form. You can see us live every day on YouTube, Periscope, Twitch, Facebook Live. Go to the Grueling Truth the Grueling Truth Facebook page. Sam, you can follow at Sam Teets 33. But for now, and you can follow me at Grueling Truth. But for now, I'm Mike Goodpaster. He's Sam Teets. You've been listening and watching to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.